Welcome to your reset with Christiane Piano, where the purpose is to support you in releasing all that you are not, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. This is accomplished through working with the body-mind from an ontological perspective. We use various modalities to support you in supporting yourself exactly where you are, so that you may return to an experience of wholeness and ease, moment by moment. Deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to do this. To take a moment, to pause, assess, reflect, and literally and figuratively reset, come back to center, and move back into your one and precious life with increased clarity and purpose. Hello, I'm Christiane Piano. Today I invite you to join me in a quiet reflection on a feeling many of us carry: loneliness. Not just the state of being alone, but that profound ache that whispers when connection feels distant. In a world constantly urging us towards external bonds, it's easy to forget that the journey toward true connection often begins much closer to home, deep within ourselves. Perhaps it's not about finding connection, but a journey of reconnection. While we may grasp intellectually that our body and mind are distinct, yet profoundly interwoven, a truth I refer to as the body-mind, we often don't truly live in alignment with this understanding. When this inherent connection within ourselves falters, a whole host of experiences can quietly settle in as our norm, even if that norm is far from a state of wholeness and balance. Yet when we begin to truly feel at home within ourselves, we instinctively know how to connect with our bodies when we feel lost or adrift. And when I speak of this connection, I'm not referring to what's typically understood as a workout. Instead, I mean what I call a work-in, a willingness to feel, sense, breathe, and listen to what our bodies are trying to tell us. This communication isn't in words. To tap into our body's inherent wisdom requires a desire and a significant dose of courage to tune into a different frequency. The messages are subtle, quiet, and soft. By tuning inward, we have the opportunity to come home to ourselves and return to an experienced state of wholeness. In this whole state, we experience an increased sense of timelessness, freedom, ease, and spaciousness. This consistent tuning inward, creating that space to be with yourself, that's a lifestyle, if you will. And this very internal journey of work-in becomes even more essential in our modern landscape. With the rapid rise of technology and social networking, many people are experiencing a heightened sense of loneliness and the pervasive fear of missing out. For too many, the beautifully curated life projected outwards often masks a profound inner struggle. In these moments of profound internal challenge, who can one truly speak to? Who can one trust with what is honestly folding within? There's a nuance of loneliness, and one of the symptoms that comes about when we are experiencing disconnection within is loneliness. The experience of loneliness can often be tinted with a sense of life feeling incredibly empty and without purpose. It is so easy to fall into the trap of believing that another person is the only answer to filling that void, often convincing ourselves we don't feel okay until we find the one. Many people I work with attribute their loneliness to the absence of a soulmate, assuming that finding the right partner will magically make everything happier and easier. This is what sociologist Robert S. Weiss termed emotional loneliness, the yearning for a deep, intimate connection. The other dimension he identified is social loneliness, which arises when our relationships don't align with our desires. To feel lonely is to be lonely. This is where a necessary distinction is needed, highlighting the profound internal nature of this feeling. Loneliness differs from being alone, the objective state of having no company, because we can feel lonely in any imaginable situation. Imagine being at a bustling party, surrounded by laughter and conversation, yet feeling utterly invisible. Or perhaps you felt it acutely within a long-term partnership, lying next to someone but feeling a vast, unbridgeable distance. Even amidst family gatherings, it can surface when you feel unheard or deeply misunderstood. In other words, loneliness describes how we feel about our social connections on the inside, rather than what they look like from the outside. This explains why some people experience profound loneliness, even when they're surrounded by others, a distinctly different experience from simply being alone. As Carl Jung observed, loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. I myself have gone through a lifetime journey navigating from my earliest childhood memories an experience of being alone, even when surrounded by people. This sense of being alone in the world troubled me for a very long time. For so long I felt different, unseen, and unheard. I traveled to many corners of the world, trying to understand myself and the world around me, or perhaps more accurately, the world as I experienced it. Yet it wasn't until I began to do the inner work that a crucial truth finally dawned on me. Overcoming loneliness isn't about finding something outside myself. Instead, it's about understanding my relationship to the experience of loneliness itself and distinguishing it from my relationship to simply being alone. As I navigated my inner conflict, one significant personality trait developed. I became not just generous, but overtly, excessively so. This unfortunately attracted people who didn't just appreciate my giving, but rather expected it, almost took it for granted. They were takers, and this left me in a constant state of fatigue, depleting my energy and my sense of self. My self-worth became deeply dependent on their opinions and external validation. Leaving my inner experience in the hands of others was never beneficial, because any time we lay our inner experience in the hands of others, we truly lose our inner agency. I personally enjoy time alone, and thankfully I've reached a point in my life where I'm learning to balance being with myself, which in turn supports me in being with others. As I've distinguished my own internal context through the guidance of people I deeply trust, I've learned to trust my own inner wisdom on an ever-increasing level. While I spent so many years waiting for external confirmation that I was enough, it wasn't until I turned my gaze inward and began to experience myself as enough, worthy of unconditional love, that my outer world began to shift. It has been a long journey, and at times I wasn't sure I would make it, but something deep within me was calling out, softly nudging me to continue to trust my inner self, that something more was possible in life. Until I found home within, I would always be looking to the outside world for something that doesn't exist in reality. The experience of lonely has been a great teacher for me personally. And please don't misunderstand, this isn't me saying I've arrived or I've figured it all out, because I haven't. but I do believe that sharing our personal experiences can support others in reflecting on their own humanness and finding comfort in knowing that they aren't alone in experiencing this dichotomy. How did my experience of the world shift, you may be wondering? My inner work began to directly impact the kind of people I attracted into my life. When I was deeply caught in the pattern of overgenerosity, a trait we just discussed, I consistently found myself attracting those who simply took without reciprocity, leaving me in a state of exhaustion and dependent on external validation. Slowly over time, as I began to truly awaken to my own inner workings and the drivers behind these patterns, I had to ask myself some pretty tough questions. One in particular: how was this need for external validation and the type of relationships it drew into my life actually confirming some contorted belief I held about myself? As I began to distinguish this knot that was driving me and truly felt the knot in my body, the release of that grip began to soften. I've learned over time that relationships aren't about needing something from someone else, but rather an opportunity to journey side by side in life, respecting differences and points of view, yet having a commonality that ties us together. It's about respecting one another, loving unconditionally, and remembering that each person needs to find their own way, no matter what that looks like. I tried to navigate the traditional expectations for partnerships and life paths, and well, let's just say it has become apparent to me and those closest to me that it is just not for me. I don't share this judgmentally or as a rebellion. What I share here comes from a place of deep peace, knowing that what works for me right now in my life is just different from the masses, and that's okay. And one of the wonderful surprises along the way has been the discovery that I'm not the only one. There are many people out there in the world, small numbers thus far, but I sense with all that is unfolding in the global setting that more and more people are awakening to this for themselves, that there's more than one way of going about life. You see, if we approach finding the one or filling our lives with people as a way to avoid the feelings that come with being lonely, it's a slippery slope. This mindset often leads to high expectations for others, which in turn often leads to constant disappointments and a sense of not getting what one needs, rather than simply sharing in life's journey. When we try to fill an internal void with external solutions, we never truly find what we're looking for. The truth is, each of us already has all that we need within ourselves. We are already whole. We are already complete. The challenge lies in recognizing that our feeling of something missing is an emotional response to loneliness, distinct from the actual state of being alone and the experiences it triggers. As Einstein noted, although I am a typical loner in my daily life, my awareness of belonging to the invisible community of those who strive for truth, beauty, and justice has prevented me from feelings of isolation. His words highlight that a profound sense of connection can exist beyond physical presence, offering a buffer against the isolating effects of loneliness. Loneliness is complex, influenced by a mix of factors like genetics, personality, life experiences, and social and cultural environments. Some of us may be more predisposed to feeling lonely due to temperament or attachment styles, while others experience loneliness as a result of significant life events such as loss, trauma, or rejection. At its core, loneliness is an emotional reaction to a perceived lack of connection, often triggered by being alone, but not exclusive to it. It can be intense and easily trap you in distorted ways of thinking. And here's the catch-22, if you will. If we're navigating life through our thoughts alone, then our experience of life will simply continue to repeat itself, as our thoughts originate from our mind, and our mind's primary job is to protect us. So as we live our lives, we collect experiences and anything that appears, often unconsciously, in our present experience that reflects a negative or unpleasant past experience triggers an automatic state of protection. We harden physically and mentally. Then survival mode begins to run our lives. How survival mode shows up has many layers, but perhaps the simplest way to state it is that all that hardening cuts us off from experiencing our own inherent worth and genuine human connection with others. Building on this understanding of our mind's protective mechanisms, it becomes clear why the fear of being alone is not only a common apprehension, but a pervasive experience for so many. In fact, in conversations with others, I've observed a recurring theme, one I certainly experienced myself. So many of us settle for unsuitable partnerships and even remain in them simply because we're terrified of never finding the right person. It's the classic better the devil you know scenario. If you've ever been in a long-term partnership, you might feel out of touch with how to handle responsibilities that were once your partner's, like home maintenance, auto repairs, or managing finances. For me, I convinced myself that staying in a broken situation was better than the uncertainty of living life alone. It didn't feel safe to begin again. What about the impact on those I loved? What would happen to me financially? I couldn't fathom rebuilding my life, or if it was even possible. To sustain this mindset, I had to avoid confronting the harsh reality of my circumstances. A significant part of my identity was tied to my relationships, and my social circle was often connected to the people around me. I imagined that leaving these situations would strip away this identity, not to mention the disastrous impact I envisioned on those close to me. And what if, after all that, I made a huge mistake? I became trapped in endless cycles of distorted thinking, which made it impossible to see the truth beyond my perceptions. I had become a prisoner in my own mind. When I finally acknowledged and listened to it, my loneliness told me I needed to start being more honest, first with myself, then with others. This newfound honesty began with letting go of others' expectations. Only then could I address the shame, blame, and guilt that had kept me trapped. Finally, I could begin to deal with my pain and initiate the necessary changes. Thankfully, I did muster the courage to take a leap of faith, to believe in myself and that something more was possible in life. But before I could do that, I needed to do the inner work. I needed to learn that I was deserving of unconditional love, of allowing my light to shine brighter and brighter, and that there are people out there who are emotionally available, and that it is possible to be in a relationship where actual relating is going on. But the hardest truth to swallow was that in order for that to occur, I needed to first and foremost learn to relate with myself and return to the experience of wholeness. There is nothing missing, nothing wrong per se about me, which by no means implies that I am perfect. No, I am definitely not perfect, and I am fully responsible for all things I say and do. And yet, I am lovable, even with all my imperfections. It is what makes humans beautiful. Learning to live life from a place of feeling whole within, and being awake and aware enough daily when I fall out of balance and those old thought patterns try to take hold has been one of the greatest gifts I could give myself. And it is not by accident that I now support others in doing the same, returning to the experience of wholeness. I do hope my story resonates with you and offers a profound sense of connection, a quiet recognition for your own tender heart. This journey of coming home to ourselves is a continuous one, filled with quiet discoveries and profound shifts. If any part of my experience speaks to you, I invite you to begin or deepen your own work in. Take a moment today, perhaps, to simply listen to that soft whisper within. It holds more wisdom than you know. Remember, as the poet Rumi reminds us, What you seek is seeking you. May you find it in the quiet spaces within yourself. Please feel free to share this episode with anyone you think it may resonate with. Like, follow, or subscribe. If you are interested in working with me on any level of body-mind well-being, whether it be through individual body-mind maturation work sessions, perhaps participating in a series, individual privates, or through my video on-demand services, if you have questions, if you would like to engage on any level, feel free to schedule a free 15-minute consult in the appointment section, www.christianepiano.com, or email me directly at growth@christianepiano.com.